can I mix my church's worship podcast with only stock and free plugins and still make it sound as good as with my whole paid suite? Spoiler alert.
Oh, how awesome are your ways, how majestic is your name.
I just finished mixing the latest podcast episode for my church, and I set myself a challenge of doing the whole thing in under an hour, which I normally do, but with only stock and free plugins, no paid plugins. And the goal is to get it to sound as good as I do with paid plugins. Just by virtue of pitch correction alone, you're not going to get the same quality with stock and free plugins that you're going to get with paid plugins like Auto-Tune or Melodyne. But aside from that, like the actual sound quality of the mix, to me is comparable to when I use my paid suite versus stock and free. And I actually did it in less time. So let's talk about it. And yes, just like any good YouTube video and any good sermon, there are 3 points. Point number 1, clean the signal before you process it. Always, bro. Look how much space is in here. Why is there nothing in this whole giant space? I'm chopping stuff out. The format for this podcast is a short song intro where we play the idea of the song, a talking portion here, and then we pray, we get into it, we sing the song, and then there's an outro. It's a way for our worship team to introduce songs like more in depth than we can on a Sunday morning to the rest of the congregation. So why is all this stuff missing? Well, there's a lot of mic bleed. It's a 12 by 12 untreated room with 2 vocal mics and an acoustic guitar. The guitar is DI, but still you're getting bleed in the vocal mics. So what we want to do is 1, just delete as much as you possibly can. 2, noise gates, baby. With our talking portion, especially with my worship associates mic, listen to this.
There's like 2 sides of it for me.
If I don't have the noise gate on while the other guy's talking,
Dude, when I'm thinking about this.
so you are missing some of like the yeah, just by virtue of how aggressively the noise gate is set, like freaking 25 dB. Are you kidding me? But that's what I had to do in order to chop the stuff out quickly without going through and manually like, is he saying something there? Chop. Okay, is he saying something there? Chop, and then delete, in between. I don't have time for that. We're trying to do this in under an hour, and I don't have access to my RX suite, so I can't just clean out the background noise. After the noise gate, we have some, not like aggressive compression, but relatively aggressive compression. Again, just a stock Logic compressor, stock setting, narration vocal, and then I just sort of fine-tuned it for my guy. I've never used this before, by the way, brand new to me, but I was trying to move fast.
Who is man that you're mindful of him? Yeah, that's a great question, because like
already pretty solid. Granted, they're using 7Bs, so you're getting a decent source like tonally, but we use that compressor, and then yes, I slap OTT on my vocal mic. I think I have OTT on every single track except for the reverb and my keys. OTT on everything, baby. That's my secret sauce. Oh, hold on. That's point 2. Point 2, bro. OTT is the secret sauce on everything, dude. I have it on every single track in here. Look, though, it's at 15%. Barely anything. And I've actually lowered the mids just a tad bit. I'm not using the upward compression at all, just downward, because we don't want to raise that noise floor. Remember, there's a bunch of noise going on in this vocal. We don't want to aggravate that without.
Yeah, that's a great question, because
already sounds fine, but that extra 15%.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Just makes him crispier, bro. I love that top end. It makes the consonants much more clear, gives you more of that classic like podcaster sound. So I've done that approach on both of our guys. Well, this one I didn't have to have a noise gate because he was right up here on his mic, baby. And so we didn't have to worry about the noise gate there. My other dude was like this far away from the mic. We had a little talk about that. It's fine.
When I observe your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon.
See, he already sounds great. And again, just same compression settings with the stock compressor, same OTT settings. Nothing to write home about. I don't think I even dipped the mids on his voice. So much for the talking. Now, when we get to the singing, here's where the biggest difference was between paid plugin mixing and stock and free mixing. I can't pitch correct these. Logic's flex pitch, super unnatural and robotic. Their stock pitch correction plugin, not nearly good enough, in my opinion, for pro work. So we just had to go without it. And honestly, I don't think it's that big a deal. You can debate the virtues of should you tune, should you not tune, is it unprofessional to not tune, whatever. I think he sounds fine without it, me personally. Now, as far as the effects on his voice, same compression and OTT settings, because we don't want to change the tonality of the vocal between sections of the podcast. We have to do that a little bit just because you're singing versus talking, and like when he sings, he backs off the mic a little bit so he can play his guitar. But we're trying to keep the timbre of the voice and the tonality of the voice the same between those two sections. So same compression and OTT settings. And then the other thing is just a straight up reverb. Well, it's an echo and a reverb. Listen to it and then I'll break it down for you.
See your kingdom come, Father, may your will be done.
We've got a de-esser on the front end. Yes, a de-esser on the front end, because I'm not trying to amplify the consonants, not trying to amplify the sibilance in the reverb. Nobody wants that. We just want the body of the voice.
Lord, may we see your...
You see, we're dropping like 7, 8, 9 dB on the sibilance. We don't want any of that in the reverb. Next thing I have on here is an echo. Real simple 16th note echo. Nothing crazy. Not even a ton of it either. Like a lot of the drives coming through. Then you have your reverb. Big old long 3-second reverb. And again, all of these are stock Logic plugins. I've got a channel EQ here chopping out pretty much everything except like 400 to like 3K. Why? Because that's the vibe. I love a dark reverb, and this just felt good to me. And then on top of all of that, the other secret sauce besides OTT is you sidechain your reverbs to your vocal. Now, if I was extra, I would have did 2 separate reverb channels, one for each of the vocals, and then sidechain to those individually. I didn't feel like doing that today. But when you sidechain to the vocal,
Your kingdom come, Father, may your will be done.
you're getting anywhere from like 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction while the singer is actually singing. And then as soon as they stop singing, the rest of the reverb kind of blooms back up to like unity or to wherever you had it. So you end up gaining a little bit of clarity and a little bit of like presence of the dry vocal automatically without having to automate anything. And then as soon as they stop singing, the reverb is right back where you wanted it at. To me, it's an easy extra step to gain a little bit more clarity in a mix where you don't have access to a lot of the tools that you're used to. I rely heavily on paid plugins, so I got to use every trick at my disposal. So much for the vocals. The acoustic guitar was one of the hardest things to mix in this video because, my boy, it sounds like this. Where is the body? Where is the body? Is it raptured? What I learned after the fact is my worship leader is using like a vintage Gibson acoustic that he has that I'm sure is really good for other use cases. But in this particular situation, and for my particular acoustic guitar preferences, I needed a lot more body and presence to it, especially since the only other instrument is some keys. I don't have a full band here. There's no bass. The keys aren't doing a ton on the low end. So I really needed some body on this acoustic guitar. The very first thing I did is compression, because before you add anything, the idea is you clean before you like do all the extra stuff. So we're just catching, really we're just trying to catch the peaks and tame them back by maybe like 5 dB tops on the really, really aggressive ones. And then I have a limiter on to make sure we're not jumping out too far. Again, just to kind of tame the peaks. Since I don't have my paid plugins, I can't use my automatic like volume rider plugin, and I don't have the time to sit here and ride the volume. So we're going old school with a compressor. It's literally a Logic preset, freaking acoustic guitar preset, and then dial in to taste. And then the second thing we do, yes, is OTT. Chop down the mids just a little bit, and then some upward compression to bring out like the string noise and the clarity of the guitar, especially on the high end, because remember, we don't have like any high end on this guitar. And it's still only at 15%. We're not using a ton of this. And then the very last thing, I'm gonna look like a maniac for this, getting rid of, any kind of rumble from like mic stands or cars passing by or whatever. And then you this massive EQ bump. Because listen, back and forth, right? Suddenly I have the acoustic guitar body that I wanted. So I don't care if it looks goofy as long as it freaking works. And listen, I didn't do anything to the keys, by the way. This was the easiest part, and I told my keys player this, and now his ego is like this big. I didn't do any processing whatsoever. Not necessary. The man has his own like custom Nord presets. He's put the work in. He's got a great sound, and I didn't have to do anything to it. So props to you, Anthony. That's most of the mix. The very last thing would be to do bus processing or like master bus processing. So on the instrument bus, I put a little dip here between 2 and 3K, just because that's where a lot of the presence of a vocal is and where it kind of punches through. And so that's just to give me a little bit more room while they're singing to make the vocals stand out a bit more.
Your will be done on the earth, oh Lord.
So to me, that helps the acoustic guitar kind of back off from where the vocals need to be at, because they can kind of fight each other. They sit in similar frequency ranges. It's not a drastic change, and you'll notice that with a lot of mixed bus processing or any kind of bus processing, I'm not making drastic changes. That's not the point. The point is like very subtle sort of crafting changes. Side note, almost forgot, I do have a reverb on the acoustic guitar as well. Here's the dry acoustic. Nothing crazy. It's like a very short, bloomy kind of ambient reverb, because our ears expect physical instruments to live in a physical space. And when you have a dry acoustic, it just sounds kind of out of place and dead. At least to me it does. And I want it to feel natural. So that's what that's there for.
Majestic is your name in all the
It's not really noticeable with the whole band going, but you'll hear it like at the beginning.
What is man and you are mindful, the Son of Man.
Or less hear it so much as feel it, but feeling it is the point. So that's everything except for the mix bus processing. Very first thing I did, linear EQ. This is only on the sides, by the way. I'm doing like a mid-side situation here, and I'm cutting out, again, low passing, but just on the sides, whatever low end is in the mix or is in the keys specifically, I'm wanting to center that instead of leaving it too spread out. Just gives me more dynamic range. It would probably matter more if I was doing a full band versus just this podcast, but old habits die hard. The next thing we have here is the Kotelnikov. It's a mastering compressor. It is free. It's not stock, but it is free. And I'm only using this to...
Lord, our Lord, oh, how awesome are your ways.
At most, we get like 2 dB of gain reduction. It's just catching the peaks and kind of pulling them back before I use a limiter to bring the whole volume up. The next thing we're doing is yet another linear EQ in side mode. So here I'm EQing the sides of the stereo field, not the middle of it. And I'm boosting 1K here by a couple of dB because that gives you the perception that the mix is wider than it actually is. Again, not obvious, but...
Ways, how majestic is your name in all the earth.
Makes the most difference with the keys, honestly, because the keys are already stereo. And so increasing that 1K here and here, not across the board, just here and here. You keep the clarity of the vocal here in the middle and, you know, nothing's fighting with it. But then in the sides where the reverb of the vocal is and where the keys are hanging out, you're getting suddenly more presence and your ears are more aware of the space. Last thing is a limiter. Again, stock limiter. I'm just... I'm just cranking it up till I get between 2 and 3 dB of gain reduction because I don't want it to sound super compressed. I might be able to go further, but I like where the dynamics of the mix are at right now and I don't want to change them. That's it, bro. Now, we couldn't do any audio cleanup, so we couldn't strip out background noise, right? We couldn't do any pitch correction. So there is that sort of lacking in my opinion. But aside from that, I'm really happy with the mix and I did it in under an hour. Matter of fact, I did it in about 30 minutes. So it was faster than my mixing with paid plugins because I'm not tuning the vocal. That's what takes the majority of the time. All that to say, it's actually not that difficult if you know what you're doing to get a good mix with just stock and free plugins. I was personally surprised. If you want the template for this, like put a comment down here and I'll throw it on Dropbox or something for you guys. You're just going to need OTT and Kotelnikov. And obviously it only works in Logic, but that's that. Love you guys. Why would they hit subscribe for more mixing breakdowns? I don't want to hit subscribe for more mixing breakdowns. I don't do mixing breakdowns.